Hey there, true believers. How's it going? Well, you got to pick your side between Cap or Iron Man for the Civil War movie, but let's take a look at the at where this movie comes from. The original Civil War comic from 2006 through 2007. Joining me tonight is Reggie. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. So we did a review on the movie. Which you watched, I believe, because we did a review on it.
Yes,
I believe you watched it.
You should be able to find that review up on reggiestake.com. So.
That's right. So you have, how familiar are you with the comic? Did you ever read them?
Never, I think I've said before, as far as the Marvel comics, I never really even read anything of the Marvel comics. So, to me, I mean, what I know of Marvel is really what I've researched and looked at because of the movie universe and just from the movies. So what I do know of it is just because of what I've read. I haven't actually read the comics. It's amazing what the Google can do for you nowadays.
Oh yes, I just love the Google. Right up there on the interwebs. It's just fantastic.
Well, that and also Marvel.com really does a nice job of putting the storylines from all their previous comics up there anyway. So, I mean, you can...
Oh, really?
And there's also there's other websites out there, too, that have, you can find the backstories to some of these comics as well. So
I'm going to have to look up Marvel.com. From what you say, it sounds like a fantastic website.
Well,
please sponsor us. To be honest, I remember when Civil War came out. Civil War was a big deal. Part of the reason why it was such a big deal is because, obviously Spider-Man, that was huge. But I'll get to that in a minute. But this was really the first, or not necessarily the first time, but this was like a really big opportunity for Marvel. After Iron Man's Extremis story, which was in 2005, which I think kind of leads up to this. I think that kind of opened the doors for this storyline. But back then, to be honest with you, truth be told, in the 90s and the 2000s, as far as Marvel was concerned, Spider-Man and X-Men were the big deals. Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, all these guys we love now, they were kind of a second fiddle as far as popularity is concerned. They shouldn't have been. They were really good characters, but they just weren't as popular as Spider-Man or X-Men. So this was really a good opportunity for them to let those characters...
not as mainstream or just not as popular?
Just not as popular. I really think everyone knew who Captain America was. I think everyone knew who Hulk was. Hulk, I'm not sure, is even in this. I haven't... but She-Hulk is. Iron Man may not have been as well known, but I think a lot of people still knew who he was. I mean, there were really big characters, but X-Men just exploded in the 90s, partly because of the TV show, and then they also had those X-Men trading cards. So X-Men was pretty huge, and I think like the other big characters started taking a back seat, and this is before all the movies came out. This really kind of brought them to the forefront, I believe. It was written by Mark Miller, who is pretty well known as far as comic book writers, and drawn by Steve McNiven, who I'm not really super familiar with, although I gotta say I really do like the art in this, so I should probably look him up a little more. Now, the truth is, I'm not, to be perfectly honest with you, I really wasn't a fan of this when it came out. And partly because of Spider-Man. Obviously, they needed Spider-Man as kind of the, Yes, this is the side between Captain America and Iron Man, but they needed Spider-Man to be kind of the crew of the entire story because I mean it's Spider-Man. So as they did in this issue that I'll be going over, or rather, in this issue that I'm going over, Spider-Man unmasks himself, and that was big. I wasn't really super happy with that at the time. I thought that was kind of a weird step.
Well, didn't you say in an earlier podcast that that really kind of hindered the writers of Spider-Man because they didn't know where to go with it?
It did a lot of things. That is one of many things. And keep in mind, right before this came up, there was the storyline with Gwen Stacy's Goblin kids that is just awful. Like that was the worst thing they ever did. And so this, I think, for me was just another nail in the coffin. Like I was pretty much done with Marvel and Spider-Man. Rereading it now, though, I like it a lot better now. But this starting with the Clone Wars and then the Return of the Green Goblin and then the return of Aunt May coming back to life, and then the whole Ezekiel crap, which I'm not even going to get into, and then the Gwen Stacy Goblin kids was just like the worst. And then there was this, and I think by this point, I think this was something that they wanted to do. It's a flagship character, and they really wanted to do something kind of different with him and kind of expand his character a little bit. And the problem is, I think that between that and everything else, they didn't know what to do, and that's why they came up with the Brand New Day storyline. And Brand New Day it's one of those things where enough damage had been done to the character that it needed a reboot, but how it was done is just terrible. Like he makes a deal with the devil, or Mephisto as he's called in Marvel world, and they pretty much erase like everything that happens, except they don't, because it doesn't change the rest of the universe. Like, so it doesn't make any sense. So I'm not really sure. But I mean, that was about as close to New 52 as Marvel was willing to go. So it was Brand New Day. As far as like a total reboot, it was more of a half reboot. And actually, I don't think New 52 was a total reboot either. So I guess the one or Flashpoint, I should say. The one I guess I'm really thinking of, it would be, what was that? Crisis on Infinite Earth.
Has Marvel ever technically just rebooted all their comics completely from ground zero?
No, and I kind of think that with the Ultimate Universe, that's what they were trying to shoe that in, or nudge it in, I should say, with audiences and try to get people
on board.
And it didn't really work out. It was a good idea. It was a very good idea, but I think they were like still pigeonholing themselves with stuff that had been written in the past. Like they were still trying to redo some of these stories and stuff that they really didn't need to. And I don't know. It was just like, well, am I going to read this weird Ultimate version, or am I going to read the quote real version that's out right now? So kind of. It wasn't a failure by any means, but I don't think it was successful enough to take over the Marvel universe. But I gotta say though, reading this now, I like this a lot better. The idea, basically what happens is in issue 1 right now, or volume 1, I should say. I've got volume 2 right here, which covers so many comics. I mean, this was a huge crossover. I mean, it covered Iron Man, Captain America, Avengers, X-Factor, Spider-Man, like everything. So, I mean, it's really easier to just go through it in volume. But in the previous volume, at the beginning of all this, starts with a loser group of superheroes who are basically like a reality show sort of thing, like Dog the Bounty Hunter or something like that. And they arrest loser supervillains. Well, one of the loser supervillains called Nitro sets off a bomb, kills them, kills all the heroes and the villains, and everybody in the basically that city block. So a lot of children died and all this. So you know, a lot of people died in that event. So Tony Stark goes to like a funeral, and some lady there, similar to the movie, a lady there confronts him and talks to him about her son that died and about how this is his fault. Well, Iron Man at first tries to argue. He says, "Well, it's not really my fault. I wasn't there." And she says that by showing the world that it's okay to be a vigilante and doing this and that, and like you and everyone else is to blame for all this. Iron Man takes that to heart. So
Kind of like what he did in the movie.
yeah, yeah. Although in the movie it was his fault.
Right.
I mean, and he admits it. Like Ultron was 100% his fault. That is one thing I really like about the Civil War movie is like, and I really like Age of Ultron. But if there's one issue that I had with it, it's like they kind of got off. I felt like they kind of got off scot free. Like they're the ones that created Ultron.
Well, him and Banner.
Yeah. But I mean, like the Avengers more or less get off scot free for it. But then after seeing this movie, it's like, oh no, they didn't. Like they are definitely
Paying for it now.
Yeah, yeah. So I really like that. Yeah. I think another one of the issues that I kind of have with this overall, though, compared to the movie did a lot better job of, like, when you watch the movie, you can really take Iron Man or Captain America's side. I mean, they're both right, they're both wrong, and it is a much more complicated moral dilemma. Whereas in the comic, they kind of, and it's kind of due to the nature of the comic, like, I don't totally, like, I understand where Mark Miller's coming from, Mark Millar, or however you pronounce it, but kind of the big problem with the comic is pretty much Captain America's side. When you read it, like, you pretty much, any reader is going to sympathize with Captain America's side over Iron Man's side. Like, Iron Man's side definitely comes off as, like, fascist and villainy, and which
Was it just their choice to decide to have a right and a wrong in the comics?
I think it's was just kind of difficult. I mean, first off, these are superheroes. They're gonna they solve all their problems by punching, and you know, when the moral dilemma is wearing a mask and being a vigilante, is that right or wrong? Well, in the real world, obviously, it's wrong. In the comic book world, if that's wrong and everyone's going to have to work for the government now, we're not going to have comic books anymore.
Right.
So, like, I don't really think there's any way around it. I think whatever good intentions they had for that story, they kind of realized halfway through, like, oh, yeah, like, there's really, like, I mean, this whole universe, this imaginary universe, is based on the very idea of people wearing masks and beating up people and being a vigilante. Like, I mean, there's really nothing else to this universe. Like, you know, so I think that was just kind of the dilemma there.
And the comics was more or less about the superheroes being identified to the public.
Yeah, it was
to where the movie was being held accountable.
Yeah, yeah, and being because what was it in the movie? It was supposed to be a UN ran.
Yeah, UN thing, which makes more sense. I mean, you wouldn't want necessarily the U.S. government or a certain government, because then you could say, oh, well, the Avengers could just move to this country and avoid the whole issue.
Of course, on the other hand, it's like, do you want Vladimir Putin telling Thor what to do?
Yeah,
like, so I mean, and so like, I mean, they really did, I think, do a better job making it an actual dilemma, a moral dilemma, I should say.
It'll be interesting though to see where Marvel takes this though. These accords that they put in place in the movies, how far, and how much do they continually refer back to it
Yeah,
in future movies? I'm
yeah,
assuming we won't hear much about it until at least the Infinity War movies, or whatever it is they're going to be renamed to. So say the Russo brothers. So that'll be interesting to see how much they hold themselves to that, or does it get lost in the wind
yeah.
with the other writers?
It really is. I also really, yeah, that is really interesting.
Well, you know how Hollywood can get sometimes, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's gotten that way within that universe too. Or not within the universe, but within the that company. Like, I mean, we've
Yeah.
a couple directors have left. Um, you know, but it's hard to say.
And
I think Kevin Feige has a pretty good idea of
and
where
you
he
can't
wants to go.
necessarily blame Disney or Marvel if the directors they've initially hired decided to go, okay, I can't do this. I can't work with you guys. I'm leaving after accepting the project, because you have to think about it. No matter what a director vision may have and what they may want to do, and it may all look and sound great, but if it doesn't fit
Yeah.
within that what they've
Yeah.
already set up, it's going to become a huge red flag to the fans of going, well, wait a minute, you just completely just disregarded everything else, or whatever it is that director may have wanted to do. And you can't necessarily always do that, especially when now that there are 13 movies into this whole universe, you've got to maintain some consistencies.
And I was thinking, that's really funny that you bring that up. I was thinking about that earlier today, like with Edgar Wright. He had been working on Ant-Man for about 10 years. And I think after so many years of delays and script rewrites, he was finally like, I'm done. I can't do it. So he stayed on as executive producer. And I was thinking about that before we feel like, before we take sides, speaking of taking sides, before we take sides between, it's easy to look at the production companies like Disney or Kevin Feige, like the big guys, and just like look at them as a villain, and oh, you're not letting these artistic directors do whatever they want, blah blah blah. But I mean, at the same time, it's like it's really not them. This Marvel universe it's bigger than these directors. It's bigger than Joss Whedon. It's bigger than
The Russo brothers.
It's bigger than Kevin Feige. I mean, it's bigger than any of the executives at this point. This thing is huge.
And the biggest daddy of them all is the money it's bringing in to Marvel and Disney. And Disney and Marvel execs are not going to let that machine get derailed at this point.
It's big. I mean, you just gotta accept that, and some people just may not, their vision may not, or even just their work style may not be cut out for something this big. I don't think even Kevin Feige thought that it would, or Feige. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look up how to pronounce his name eventually, but I don't think even he thought that this was going to be as big as it is. I really don't.
And I'm sure there's probably some of the directors that have come in and had been announced to direct a Marvel movie, and then 3 months later, walked away from the project.
Well, that lady,
there's
with Black Panther, she was.
It was more or less creative differences. It wasn't necessarily.
Yeah.
They both amicably parted ways.
Yeah,
and she hadn't technically been hired yet.
I think she found out what it would be like working there and realized that her style wouldn't fit for that at all.
Or whatever it is,
Which is smart. That's smart to say, hey, look, I don't think this is going to work.
or whatever it is her idea was, may have been a great idea. It may have worked for a great movie if it was just a standalone Black Panther movie and it wasn't connected to some big larger universe, and it was like a late 90s or even like a Batman Begins type movie where you could put it out there. It may have been a really great movie, and she may have had some really great ideas for it. But when you're looking at this overall larger picture, it would have been like, yeah, okay, we like this, but we can't let you do this because it's going to contradict. It's going to contradict what we've already been doing, and it just won't work.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing somewhere in all that is where the differences have come in with these directors. Same way with the original Ant-Man director and writer, and I have heard that they tried to keep as much of that guy's idea as possible, but and keep the core of what he had there, but they had to.
I think in that case, it was like, I mean, literally after 10 years, and not being able to get it done. It's like, I think anyone would quit at that point too, because it's like, even if, and I don't know if there's a big, like, he stayed on as executive producer, so I don't know what that means.
That
I don't
could be
know
name
if that
only.
means,
I mean, hell, you see all these Marvel movies, and you got Stan Lee as executive producer on all these movies. I'm sure it's more or less in name only.
But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know if that means that he parted on terrible terms with them, or if he just parted on I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, but I mean, with that one, I can understand a little bit why. Like, I think after 10 years, like, a lot of people would, and it's like, at that point, just like have someone come in, look at what he did, and go from there. I mean, because like after all that, but and I mean, the fact is, like, if it weren't for Edgar Wright, we wouldn't have an Ant-Man movie.
Yeah.
Like, we wouldn't. He'd probably just pop up in an Avengers movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean,
you end up being a side character.
Because, I mean, frankly, compared to, Black Widow or Black Panther or
now
even Hawkeye, like, I mean, Ant-Man's really not that popular of a character, or he's not really that big of a character that he would have warranted a movie, other than the fact that it's been something that's been worked on for a long time.
Now we've talked about these directors and freedom of being able to do what they want in regards to the Marvel Universe. You wonder how much freedom James Gunn has got right now with
I'm
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Worried about that,
because since Guardians of the Galaxy right now is so. Yeah, technically it's still within that Marvel universe, but it's so disconnected to what everything else is going on. You almost have to wonder if he's got a little bit more freedom to do kind of what he wants to a certain extent, at least with those characters.
No.
Knowing that he still at some point has to maybe pull them in, or they're going to get pulled in, knowing, with the Infinity War, you would have to assume those guys are going to get pulled in into at least the Infinity Wars at some point.
Well, I'm a little worried about that, because if you remember, like, when Avengers came out with Joss Whedon, like nothing had been seen like that before. Not only and I mean, personally, at the time, I wasn't the biggest Joss Whedon fan. I know in high school I'd catch Buffy every now and then, and I wasn't a huge fan. I thought it was kind of stupid, but I still liked it.
See, I'd
catch it every now and then.
I wasn't even aware Joss Whedon was the one behind Firefly or had done some of the Buffy vampire stuff. I had no idea until after I saw the Avengers.
Now, see, Firefly I did watch a couple times before Avengers, and Firefly I was a big fan of. So I had a little bit of his Whedonisms, so to speak, his weird way that I call it a Whedonism. Essentially, every character in a Joss Whedon movie talks exactly the same. They all have the exact same voice, which I assume is how he talks in real life. But, the Firefly, the Whedonisms were a lot lower. They were downplayed quite a bit. They were still there. There were still moments of really bizarre dialogue for laughs, but it was a lot more subtle. Avengers just goes out of the park with it, and anyway, I guess what I'm getting to is with James Gunn. I'm worried that this is going to be like Avengers: Age of Ultron, where like everybody loved it because it was different, and then like now for the next one, it's like we want it to fit in this universe. On the one hand, Disney's like, we want it to fit in the universe, and then on the other hand, the fans are like, but we want it to make it different, and then they try to
Combine the two.
Yeah, and it winds up being kind of a mess. Which Ultron, as much as like I like Ultron, it was kind of a mess, and
But
so I don't know.
But you almost have to believe that James Gunn was under under the understanding and realization when he did the first Guardians of the Galaxy that was going to be a possibility, a big possibility coming down the line.
Well, and I also think, and I don't, like, I'm sure, like, because, I've got so many fans listening to this. I'm sure, like, I'm going to get a lot of hate mail for this. I'm not. Nobody listens to this. But anyway, I'm going to say it. I think James Gunn is smarter and maybe more talented than Joss Whedon, or better. I think also the thing about James Gunn is he didn't really get big until Guardians of the. He had some movies. There's a movie called Super with Rainn Wilson.
Uh-huh.
It's not a superhero movie. This is but it kind of is. Rainn Wilson dresses up as a superhero.
Well,
speaking of Firefly, it's got
well, didn't he do the Serenity movie too?
No, that was Whedon.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Didn't
No, I'm talking about James Gunn.
Okay.
But yeah, he did a movie called Super, which is pretty good. It's really violent and really messed up. It's kind of like, did you ever see Taxi Driver?
No, I've not.
With Robert De Niro. That was like one of my favorite movies. Still is. It's kind of like Taxi Driver. I mean, not as good, obviously, but like it's like Taxi Driver, except instead of driving a cab, this guy wears a superhero suit that he made and clubs people on the head with a monkey wrench. It's pretty wild.
Wow.
But other than that, I think James Gunn was mostly just a screenwriter. But so like I think he didn't. Guardians of the Galaxy is essentially what built his fan base, whereas Joss Whedon already had a fan base and an ego when he came into this. So, like, there's also that difference there too. I think Gunn might be able to compromise a little bit more because he's not as big. We'll see. But yeah, yes, indeed.
Huh.
Speaking of directors, Shane Black's been in the news on talking about Iron Man 3 lately.
I think I saw an article on some website where he had to change a character because it was more for factor of Marvel and Disney wanting to sell toys.
Yeah,
so they had to swap the gender.
I think it was Aldrich Killian, which actually, like, now that I know that makes a lot more sense. The Dr. Maya, what was her name? I really liked that actress, by the way. But in the original Extremis story, she was the bad guy in the story. Aldrich Killian,
you said
kills himself. He's in one page of the entire story.
So that was
and he
the
shoots
change.
Himself.
So that was the change in the movie.
Yeah. Which
see, I think that would have been interesting to have a female bad guy once you realize for the way they did Iron Man 3. I mean, the way Stark has always been kind of with women. I mean, that would have been an interesting position to put him in.
Yeah, it is kind of, and like, I thought that was I thought that they just did the switcheroo just to, like, well, from the comics, just to make Aldrich Killian more like a true Mandarin or something. But Of course, I guess she could have been the Mandarin
Mandarin.
too. Like, I
You,
mean,
you still,
Mandarin is a genderless
right.
noun. So they could have done that. Um,
Yeah, because that could have been a really interesting storyline because the way they started out the movie, he met
yeah,
her, had sex with her in the hotel,
yeah.
and all that, and then coming back around 20 years
It
later, that would have
actually,
really been an interesting plot.
I thought the whole switcheroo was just to like, really not let audiences on to what you're doing. But now that I know this, now that I know that the original script, she was just like in the comic. Now in the comic, she wasn't an evil mad woman or anything. She was just like,
Thought she was doing right.
yeah, she just made this virus and was trying to cover that shit up. I mean, she, you know,
Well, all true evil geniuses always never do think they're doing wrong. So,
but yeah. Now that I know that, it's like it makes a lot more sense if she would be like the the pissed off scorned one,
right.
rather than Aldrich Killian, who's just some dork in an
See,
elevator.
see if they would
Like,
have.
that makes a lot more
See,
sense.
if they would have stuck to that and maybe had her come out and say, "Oh, I am the real Mandarin," then maybe I wouldn't have had such a issue with the whole Trevor crap.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have been less scorned about it. But
Yeah.
for the way they did it, yeah, my arguments
Yeah,
with that.
and I am one of the few. I think I am one of the people who definitely. I would have liked to have seen them follow through and made her the villain. I am one of the people though who.
I mean, because they're talking about the comics need more diversity with more women superheroes. Well, why not have the same diversity with bad guys?
Yeah.
Make a female the antagonist.
Well, now that we know that, and before we vilify Feige or anything, we've finally gotten a lot more Black Widow merchandise with what's her name, Scarlett Johansson. And before, she was always, when you make action figures, she was always the one left out, even though she was a much bigger character than, say, Hawkeye. And the reason for that is, because
Probably because who buys the toys?
Male toys
Right.
sell more. But I'm really hoping
I mean,
that and again, before we start shouting sexism and Disney's sexist and all this, like, we need to like chill out and say, okay, let's actually look at the sales of these toys. And if the Scarlett Johansson toys, obviously they're going to be behind Tony Stark, but if they're behind if the Robert Downey Jr., but if they're behind Jeremy Renner's toys as far as sales go, then maybe we need to stop pointing the finger at big movie companies and calling them sexist, and maybe we should point the finger at ourselves. Because I really think we should start thinking about that. It's like, maybe we're the ones. Maybe this problem with sexism is so big that we can't just vilify a company. Like, maybe this is something. Now, granted, on the other hand, it's like, well, at the same time, they really should sell the toys because A, I want a Black Widow action figure, and B,
well, see, I just had an interesting thought. What if you took 100 kids, 50 boys, 50 girls, and you put, let's say, a certain amount of action figures out in front of them, one of them being Black Widow, you tell them you had to choose, or even just put two, one of... however you want to do it, how many of the boys would actually take a Black Widow figure over what the girls would? You know what I'm saying? So I wonder if that's the reason why the whole, they kind of push some of those male figures more or less on the toys than they do a Black Widow character, and someone like an adult like you or I, who are more like, woohoo, hey, look at Scarlett Johansson in that outfit, where we'd be maybe more likely to go out and buy it because... Well, we're just adult perverts, so to speak.
We're not perverts.
But Well, for basis of my argument here, you see where I'm going with this. I just wonder if how many 12-year-old boys would be willing to actually say they have a Black Widow action figure over a Hawkeye action figure.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And actually, what that reminds me of was back in the 1950s. There was in a lot of psychology, sociology, and like civil rights and all this. They look to the study that was done back in the 1950s. Maybe it was the 60s. Don't quote me on it. I don't know exactly. Where they took a focus group of children and which doll are they going to play with. Now, these children were white and black. I don't know if other races existed in the 1950s because, you know, whatever. Of course they did. I'm just saying, like, but they were white and black kids. There might have been others too, but they had to choose to play with either a white doll or a black doll. I think these were mostly girls, probably, but the white children typically pick the white doll. Sure. The black children also pick the white doll.
Really?
Yeah. So
Interesting experiment.
it's well, it really shows, and I mean this is back in the days when this was back in the days before the civil rights movement, back when there was segregation and all this, and these studies are important. I wish, like you said, I wish they would do a study with something as silly as Marvel, like who wants to play with the Scarlett Johansson versus the Jeremy Renner doll. But these studies are important because they really show what our society is projecting onto children.
And just to adjust my argument a little bit, I think more people who'd be willing to buy the Scarlett Johansson Black Widow doll would be more of the collectors.
Yeah, oh yeah.
More so than more so than a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Okay, the 12-year-old girl might be willing to pick it up, but I think there's that whole perception of, I mean, let's face it, whether it's a 4-inch action figure or it's a 1-foot tall Barbie. I mean, it's the same thing for girls and boys. It's just for a girl they call it a doll, and for boys they're calling it an action figure.
Didn't Mattel come up with that?
Yeah, I don't remember whose idea, but I mean, it in a certain sense, you're still playing with a piece of plastic that looks like either a male or a female. It's just you're calling it one thing for a girl, another thing for a boy, and I think the whole perception is most of those marketers and movie studios are knowing most of the action figures can be sold or can be picked up by parents buying it for their boys, not their girls. So,
and I guess and that and going back to that old experiment, it makes you wonder. It's easy. It's easy to just blame the toy companies and the movie companies and all this, but I mean, are they the reason that we tend to be sexist in this country, or is it bigger? I mean, and that's why these are something we can't just like blame somebody. We need to look at ourselves and say, why is this like this? Is it like I really don't think it's because of the toy companies. I'm sure the toy companies are enablers. They're enablers as far as this is concerned, but they're not. They're not what's to blame. So, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is before you go calling these toy companies sexist, go out and buy a Black Widow doll. That's what I'm saying. By the way, I have one, so I can say that. I got to take that back, though. Mine is actually not the Scarlett Johansson version. It's based on the comic. It's still Black Widow. I'm not sure if I get total credit for this, but I got it before. Well, actually, I got it because, man, this is embarrassing. Marvel Select,
I'll
really good action figures, and I'm not an action figure collector by any means, but I figure I'm 30 years old and single, and what else am I got to live for at this point? So, I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, I'll buy an action figure. So I was buying some based on the Avengers movies, and they didn't have Black Widow. They do now. They do now. But Marvel Select did have a Black Widow action figure. It was just based on the comic. It was before, I think it was before the movies came out. So I bought it, and it came with a little Ant-Man, which is pretty cool. Obviously not based on the movies. But now, like, they did come out with one recently that was Scarlett Johansson. So
I'll grade you on the pass-fail system.
there you go.
So I'll give you a pass.
Oh, good. That's just for this, though. For life, it's a fail, right?
I'm not a judge on that. So, speaking of, since we're kind of talking about the movies, have you seen what DC has done? And it's kind of in it's so easy to talk about Warner Brothers and DC right now. I guess they're making it easy on us. I don't know why, but
Tell me. I have no idea, honestly.
well, Warner Brothers in the whole Batman versus Superman. I don't know if you want to call it fiasco, meltdown, or just a complete mishandling of the whole movie that should have been a huge blockbuster, money wise. They have finally gone ahead and set themselves up with their own, quote, Kevin Feige type people in charge. They went ahead and put DC Chief Creative Officer Jeff Johns and
Jeff Johns, seriously,
and Warner Brothers Executive Vice President John Berg to be in charge of the Warner Brothers DC film universe.
Wow.
And
Jeff Johns is great. I love Jeff Johns.
And both these guys have already been working kind of with the whole Warner Brothers DC
I thought
things.
They were.
Yeah, Berg has been working with the DC Extended Universe, working already on. He's worked on Batman versus Superman. He should have had more input, obviously. Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, and he's also involved with the Justice League movie. And also, both men have connection to both Ben Affleck. Wonder why they decided to go with that. Yeah. Because the WB executive Berg worked to help on Affleck's Argo, and also his Affleck's coming up Live by Night. So I think they're trying to right the ship, but it's after a few holes have already been poked in the bottom of it.
Kind of, yeah. Like I mean, Man of Steel was still fixable. I don't know if it's fixable at this point.
Well, I'm hoping by this news, I'm hoping that these guys will help rein in Zack Snyder a little bit, maybe help him, and also with adding quote, Affleck as an executive producer, tighten up his script, even if that means you take a little bit more time filming. Tighten up the script, make the story a little bit more concise. Get rid of some of the problems of the overbloatedness of Batman versus Superman, because that movie needed a lot more tightening up from what we've seen. I mean, anyone who can sit there and come up and say their initial cut of the movie is 4 hours long doesn't have a tight script in my book.
My friend has a theory that Zack Snyder must have maybe this was after Watch. This would have been either after Watchmen or this might have been after Watchmen, but he did 300 and Watchmen for DC, which are kind of, they're Vertigo technically, so they're kind of offshoots. They're not main DC, but my friend has a theory that before Man of Steel, when they were talking about making a DC universe, that Zack Snyder must have given the best presentation to the board of directors
for Batman
of all time. Probably starting with Man of Steel, but yeah, he must have given him like the best presentation ever, because actors and the actors who work with him defend him like crazy. Like even Michael Shannon, is that Michael Shannon?
Yeah,
even so. Michael Shannon did, and he does not seem like the type that would do that. He seemed kind of like PO'd about Man of Steel. I really liked him as Zod, by the way. And by the way, man, these are good actors. Like every one of them. Like Jesse Eisenberg is a good actor. Like I mean,
I,
They all are.
I mean, there's
And
something. I mean, there had to be something there to get those guys' attention. I mean, you don't get Affleck to come in and play Batman, and just say after his quote, I would say, not so great experience with Daredevil and the shit he took for it, and then it took him several years of being a director and being a little bit choosy about his movies to kind of get his reputation back.
yeah,
So you don't get someone like him to jump back into a superhero character without one hell of a great idea.
yeah, these actors really, and like I said, even Michael Shannon, like these actors really like defend him and say they have a lot of respect for him, and I don't know, he must like he, I, he must have like, and we see it in the actual art, in the actual like art direction of the movie, like he must have we can see it there. He must have like a really just amazing what's the word I'm looking for? Just an amazing like drive and to get kind of this level. I think I think when it comes to actually making a movie, I think it's misplaced, or at least making a movie of stuff that we like. Well, I don't know.
Well, and here's the other thing. As happy as I am to hear Warner Brothers, deciding to put someone in charge of their superhero universes, which is what they should have done when they decided to go with Batman v Superman after Man of Steel, which should have been their first thing they did. Now they're working on a quote Harley Quinn movie.
What?
Yeah,
We don't even know if this movie's.
so we haven't got the Suicide Squad. Now, the only thing is, I guess Margot Robbie, kind of fell in love with the character while filming Suicide Squad, and she's kind of the one helping get this off the ground. Which I guess that's better coming from the actress than it is from the studio.
That's cool, but that's still a lot of money for.
But
for
the
an
studio,
actor to
but the
be-
studio is I guess seriously looking into this, although it's being completely kept under wraps as far as where they're thinking about going. But it looks like it. Okay, first of all, I don't see how you can have a Harley Quinn movie without having some form of Joker or Batman in it.
No.
That's just my personal opinion. But I guess they're looking at other possible characters, female characters in this movie. One being Batgirl.
Oh, okay.
So I guess if you want to say Batgirl's going after her, I guess okay, that's one way of going about it.
Well, in the cartoon, which is where Harley Quinn comes from.
Well, supposedly
her and Poison Ivy were like besties and
well,
probably lesbians.
supposedly somewhere in the whole bigger cut of Batman v Superman, there was supposed to be a Barbara Gordon to be kind of set up the Batgirl thing, but that got all put on the cutting room floor, which I don't know if they're putting back in for the R-rated cut or not. So I don't know. Which, if that's the case, and they're going to come back and bring back that same actress who was supposed to play that, then I guess it might work. But to me, this is an announcement that should have been waited for till after Suicide Squad had hit the theaters, not before.
They're really,
because I see something like this now. A Harley Quinn movie might be a really good movie and turn out to be really great, but to me,
everything reeks of desperate. Even the everything they do, and this is back when Marvel announced Age of Ultron back in 2013 or whatever that was. The next week, Batman vs Superman, and like that was the beginning of it. It's like, oh, everything here is going to be out of desperation, like even to the point of. I gotta say, and I know I'm being cynical here. I will admit that, but like even adding Jeff Johns to become their Kevin Feige is desperate. Jeff Johns is aside from being a really good writer, he's really popular. He's really well known with dorks. We like him. I mean, he's really well known. He basically revamped DC, the comics. So they're starting with Green Lantern. The Green Lantern comics that he did with Blackest Night and then Brightest Day and all these were amazing. He was behind Flashpoint, which led to New 52 and did a lot of the Flash comics. He was behind, after New 52, he did Aquaman, and his Aquaman was really good. I think he did. The Justice League after the New 52. I know Jim Lee did the art. I think Jeff Johns wrote the story, but I actually can't remember. But he basically set DC in motion to the point where when DC used Flashpoint as to do the New 52 and revamp everything, he didn't revamp Green Lantern, like, which is pretty funny. He's like, no, Green Lantern is still gonna. Like, I worked really hard on this. I'm not gonna. And they just did it. They're like, okay, I guess Green Lantern's gonna stay the same. Somehow they made it work because I guess like since it's outer space, it's far enough away. I don't know.
It didn't affect them somehow.
Yeah, like whatever time effects happened didn't
take effect.
Yeah, whatever. But
and I just want to say we're not necessarily against what DC's trying to do, or and not open to wanting them to have a successful franchise.
We're just saying it like it is. I mean,
it's just I think
bringing in Jeff Johns for quality control. DC Comics did the same thing. Like whenever you bring in Jeff Johns for quality control, it's because you've basically gone to a point where you can't fix yourself. So you need to bring him to come in and try to fix it because he's good at it.
Well, and I see this as Warner Bros. Going, okay, they're trying to avoid another Batman versus Superman with the Justice League movie, and they're not necessarily worried about right now the Wonder Woman or Suicide Squad movie. They're more worried about what Zack Snyder's doing right now, and because his last movie he just put out for Warner Brothers pretty much got ripped by everybody. They're wanting to avoid another
people
fallout.
Didn't really like Man of Steel that much either. I mean, that one has its fans, but it had a lot of detractors. And to be honest with you, I didn't like Man of Steel the first time I saw it either.
It was a different way of doing. It was a different way of doing Superman. And I think more people would be happy with DC. And no, I'm sure they're not thinking that way, but more people would be happy with them if they would be taking their time. And the movie that just came out instead of Batman versus Superman would have been a true sequel to Man of Steel.
I think so too.
And then having a Batman movie coming out where Suicide Squad is coming out, and then you get your Flash movie next May. Instead of Wonder Woman, and then put your Wonder Woman movie out in the summer. Work to build up your core Justice League, films, and work towards the Justice League, kind of like what, granted they'd be like, oh, well, you're just trying to copy Marvel, but I think that would have been the better road to go and less chance of getting a huge backlash of disappointment from the fans.
No.
It really would have been a better way of going about it in my book, because I would much rather see a solo movie of Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, even another Green Lantern movie before I got to the Justice League movie.
Yeah,
and then have it to where when you got to the Justice League movie, it's like, oh, hey, this was worth the wait. This is freaking awesome. Not all of a sudden Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman. Oh, look, Justice League movie. Ta-da!
No.
And then you're trying to get these solo movies worked in and around what you've already done, and knowing that Justice League has already taken place, and it's like, well, this is kind of no fun. I don't know how everyone feels about that, but that's just kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And we've gotten completely way off of Marvel, but I just...
Oh, that's okay.
You can't ignore news like that.
It's news.
Yeah.
This is important. It's real. I think it's real. I think it's honest. I think it's the news.
This should be leading CNN.
It should be.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else do we want to talk about?
Well, we were talking about Civil War and all that good stuff in the comics, and we were
Yeah.
debating between the two, the movie and what the comics did,
Well, if we
and what
have
the
any
movie.
more news, I want to talk more about news before I get back to this comic. I
Okay.
think the comic would work as a coda for the end. I'm not editing this out, by the way. You're going to listen to us talk about how we've not scripted our program, but that's the way this works.
Well, that and also, did you see? Speaking of news, did you see where Fox is? I can't remember who it was. I'll get to it here in a second. It has to do with Wolverine, and not the Wolverine.
Shuverine?
Not with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine either.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
It has to do with.
don't
I guess they're
know.
going to do an X Force movie. They're working on possibly. Yeah.
I'm worried that they're gonna run this series into the ground. It's like, look, like
Here it is.
I'm worried about this.
Where'd it go? Oh yeah, Bryan Singer says he has pitched a female Wolverine for X Force.
Oh, okay. That she would be X-23 then.
So
Okay. That's okay. X-23 was a
yeah,
clone of
yeah,
Wolverine,
that's what the article says here. He's talking about X-23,
female clone. So they
aka
essentially-
Laura Kinney,
Yeah, they essentially
Wolverine's clone. Maybe they're
get.
maybe you're end up
They
gonna
essentially take away a chromosome, but
maybe they're gonna end up maybe putting some sort of post credit scene maybe in the third Wolverine movie to set that up. Maybe
I am a
possibly.
little concerned about X-Men. Like I and especially like here's the deal. Like first off, like I mean, Days of Future Past was wonderful. I mean, that was a very good movie. I mean, that movie easily gives the Marvel movies a run for their money. I mean, that was X-Men and Bryan Singer, the X-Men franchise being the best that it could be. That was essentially them recapitalizing on their X-Men 2 days. Like, I mean, just, when they're good, they're good. And then we had Deadpool, which was one of the funniest movies I've seen at the theater in a long time, honestly. I like Anchorman 2, I'll say it. I like the first half of it before it completely forgets what it's about. But I mean, Deadpool is really like the best comedy I've seen at the theaters. I'm not saying it's the best comedy that's come out, but it is the best one that I've seen at the theaters in a long time. I mean, nowadays I do wait, especially with comedies. I tend to wait for them to come out on video now or streaming.
Kind of see how they do it theaters.
Well, I mean,
That's how I judge them anymore. It's
nowadays it's like going to the theaters is so expensive and it takes so much of your day. It's like I'll go for a big action event movie.
Right.
Like I mean, there's a few that I don't know, like they pretty much are all action movies these days that I go to see. Like not necessarily all superhero, but like
I pick and choose what I go see.
yeah,
I don't go see everything that I mean, there are some other movies outside the superhero genre that I would like to see at the movies, but sometimes it's like that one can wait till video. This one can wait till video. No, I'll go see this one at the theater. Yeah,
like if I have somebody talk, like I saw Rush a few years ago, and that was really good. I'm glad I saw that in theaters. That's a movie that I would have seen in on video anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But like Drive, I didn't see that in theaters. I saw that at home, and I mean and also like Blu-ray and HD screening, streaming and all that. Like if you got a decent TV, like.
And surround sound
It looks
system.
just as good as going to the theater almost, except now I can pause it and
Go to the bathroom
or whatever. Yeah,
and not miss anything.
So I mean, like it is becoming more and more. If it's an event, I'll go, but otherwise, like I may not go see a movie. I
mean,
might just wait till video.
To me, there are certain movies that you almost need to see in theaters.
Yeah.
a Star Wars, a Star Trek, and
Yeah. Those
the
are event movies for sure.
Indiana Jones movies when they come out.
Mm.
Some of the superhero movies you definitely want to go see in the
I'm
theater.
really glad I saw Mad Max in theaters. That's a movie that I probably could have waited for video.
You're talking about Fury Road. I
Mhm.
have not seen that
I
yet.
was pretty excited about it though, so that's why I went to go see it, and I'm really glad. That's an awesome movie. You haven't
I
seen
have
it,
not seen it yet.
dude?
No.
You need to see it. It's really good. Um, they use, I mean, there's CGI, a lot less CGI than typical movie. I mean, of course there is. Like there's, like when you see the big thunderstorm, obviously that's CGI, and I'm sure they enhance a few explosions here and there, but and of course use it for basic editing too. But like there really were, they really did build those weird cars and trash them. Like I mean, it's pretty cool. But you know, like yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of different, and I don't have time to see movies like I used to. It's you know, with a work schedule and everything, it's just easier to like watch them at home late at night. So
Well, I can remember a time it used to be in the late '90s with the way my work schedule was, and I was single and all that stuff. Hell, I was at the movie theater almost every weekend to see at least a movie.
yeah,
I mean, during the summertime between May and August, I mean, I think I was at I think Saturday afternoons was like, oop, yep, my chores are done. I'm
well,
going to the theater.
that's how I was in college. I gotta say though, like
Of course, then again, that's
movie
when,
prices have gone up significantly.
of course, that's when I could go to the movie theaters in the small town I was living at, matinee
Yeah,
on a Saturday for 2 in the afternoon, and spend $4.50
yeah,
just to get a ticket, and a drink and a bag of M&Ms. I barely even spend $10.
yeah.
Now you go, you spend almost $10 on a ticket, and
Oh, more than 10. More than 10.
and almost $8 just on a drink alone.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, geez, Louise.
Well, I know, like when I was in college, there was, I mean, I had a, you know, for WSU students, you got a pass to. I don't know if it was like that for Warren, but for North Rock, which doesn't exist anymore, you get like you got a discount. So with the discount, it was $5. I think the actual ticket price might have been $5.50 or $6. So it wasn't that expensive.
Right.
If you forgot your ID, it wasn't like a big deal. You weren't going to go broke. But
Well, if you're
then
a
I
college
remember,
student, you
know,
could.
and ticket prices, after that, a few years they went up. I remember when they went up to $8, and I complained. But like now, I mean, regular ticket prices are over $10. That's not counting. That's not counting IMAX or Warren 21. We live in Wichita, by the way, or Warren 21, which is pretty cool. I gotta admit, those are $16.
Yeah.
But and for those, I get it. But like the regular ticket prices after six,
I
I think they're pushing $12.
I know the matinee just for the regular theater is 7.
Matinee is before 6, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's usually
because
when
it's a lot cheaper.
that's usually when I try and go.
Well, and see, that's the other thing. I swear, I remember when I was working at the news station. I worked second shift. I'm working second shift right now. I swear, though, I remember, like I would see a movie before I went into work. Like they had, like I swear that they had earlier movie times than they do now. Like I'm seeing less and less movies start until about 3 o'clock. Whereas back in 2011, back a few years ago, I think we were getting like a lot of movies would start at noon or
I think they
1 o'clock.
still open at noon and stuff, but
But I think they're pretty selective on what they put out now. Like I at that time, I think they put a lot of movies that only old people would see at that time now, which kind of makes me mad. If you're listening, Warren, change your ways. Also, if you're listening, that Warren 21 is pretty sweet. I gotta admit that. That is a theater where you go in and it's like a recliner, heated seat, 21 inner. You can get a beer while you're watching the movie. It's pretty sweet.
Well, the big thing for I'm not a drinker, so the big thing for me would be no kids.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I have anything against kids. It's just
But
sometimes
these
sometimes
superhero
you don't want to
movies
hear
attract the kids, and yeah,
yeah.
no,
Sometimes you just don't want to hear the a whininess of a kid, having a tantrum
Yeah.
or whatever at times,
Oh yeah,
I mean, not that they play the movie loud enough that sometimes it just doesn't drown them out anyway, but you spend that kind of money to go see a movie. You want to be able to watch the movie and not get distracted by somebody. So
yeah. Well, I'm gonna go back to this comic. Again, I'm at the end of volume 2. I cannot tell you which. I'll have to look up later which part this is. I would, if I'm guessing, I would guess this would be a Spider-Man issue. Really, who cares? Like, I mean, they made this thing so you buy the books later. But at the beginning, you've got Tony Stark, who, by the way, looks like a total D-bag in these drawings. I do like the art for the most part, but like, I'm sorry, like I wasn't a big fan of the art direction that they went with Tony Stark, starting with Extremis. Actually, I bet if I like I at the time I probably liked it, but like after Robert Downey Jr., it's like, oh wait, yeah, this looks weird. Anyway, doesn't matter. But he's at a press release. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure I don't have to introduce you to Miss Miriam Sharp. She's the mother of the lady who talked, or she's the mother of the kid who died, who's talked Tony Stark into going with the Superhero Registration Act. But Miss Sharp, you may recall, lost her son in the Stanford incident and kickstarted my passion for the federal employment of all superheroes. Cuts to the Xavier mansion, and the X-Men are watching TV. Wolverine comes in. What the hell's going on? And then all of a sudden, cuts back to the press release. Spider-Man swings in. Likewise, I'm pretty sure Spider-Man needs no introduction. And cuts back to Fantastic Four. Sue says, I hope you know what you're doing there, Tony. So anyway, the important part is Spider-Man. As most of you probably know, I've guarded my secret identity carefully over the years, and it's only after a long talk with my wife and family that I've decided to take the following step. See, the Registration Act gives us a choice. We can continue the trend that Captain America advocates and have people with powers completely unchecked. Captain America started the Secret Avengers to go around this. Or superheroes can go legitimate and earn back a little public trust. Cuts to the Daily Bugle. Betty Brant comes in. Miss Brant, oh, excuse me, that's Glory Grant. Whatever. Miss Grant, you even think about asking me what I want for breakfast, and you're fired, lady. And then it cuts back to Spider-Man unmasking himself. I'm not wearing my old mask because I'm ashamed of what I do. I'm proud of who I am, and I'm here right now to prove it. My name is Peter Parker, and I've been Spider-Man since I was 15 years old. It sounds like an Alcoholics Anonymous thing, by the way.
Hello, my name's Spider-Man.
And then it cuts back to the Daily Bugle, and and J. Jonah Jameson has passed out, which is pretty funny because it's been Peter all these years. I do like that ending.
Hi, my name's Spider-Man. Hi, Spider-Man.
But yeah, this whole Superhero Registration Act, it's not new. Obviously the Watchmen. X-Men toy with this all the time. I think this is what the Mutant Registration Act, like, and I think DC had something too, if I recall. So I mean, this idea has been used quite a bit. Civil War is hardly the first to do it. Like, I mean, Watchmen I think did it best actually, but
not to distract from the Civil War comic here, but there's always been one superhero I've never understood how he's not figured out all the time.
Who's that?
Superman
And
Clark.
I
mean, come on. You part on one side, part on the other, and you put glasses on him. Hello?
That's not nearly as dumb as Green Arrow with his with his handlebar mustache and goatee. Like, shave that thing, dude. Like everyone, like all those heroes, especially the DC ones, they wear cowls, and it's like, well, if you're gonna have facial hair, it's gonna be really easy to figure out who you are.
Yeah.
Like,
I just never understood how Lois Lane never put two and two together all those years. It's just like, oh, come on.
it's pretty stupid. This is a quote from Mark Millar. Mark Miller. I opted instead for making the superhero dilemma something a little different because he's talking about the fact that this has been done before, especially with Watchmen and X-Men and DC and all this. Oh, the New Frontier. That's who did it with DC. Well, of course, Watchmen, I guess, was. Yeah. Anyway, I opted instead for making the superhero dilemma something a little different. People thought they were dangerous, but they did not want a ban. What they wanted was superheroes paid by the federal government like cops to open the same kind of scrutiny. It was a perfect solution, and nobody, as far as I'm aware, has done this before. That sounds neat. Although I gotta say, like, I'm pretty sure in Watchmen, like, that's what the comedian was doing. Of course, I don't know. Was he still wearing his? He wasn't wearing his costume though, was he? He was just like a paid assassin. I don't know. So he's either right or wrong. I can't really say, but yeah. So anyway, that's Civil War Volume 2 in a nutshell. I don't have any mail in this one just because there's no way I'm gonna go out and find an actual comic from this. Like, I mean, it's just too much. But you know, this was a big deal. I don't think.
Now I'm reading here that in this one thing it says here that it says that Captain America is apparently assassinated by Crossbones, acting on orders from the Red Skull, but it was actually Sharon Carter who actually shot him.
Really?
I don't know if that's actually true or not.
I haven't gotten that far, to be honest.
I have no idea if that's actually true or not. But that's kind of interesting.
I thought he got killed by Crossbones.
But that's kind of interesting. Yeah. So, and obviously,
Well,
you know,
I'll tell you, this is where like the Thunderbolts, which is Marvel's version of Suicide Squad, they're called the Thunderbolts, which is a bunch of bad guys working for the government. I think they're working for the Green Goblin.
Yeah, it says Norman Osborn is his director.
Yeah, and Tony Stark is the one that sets
his own
sets
Avengers,
them up.
sets his own Avengers team up called the Mighty Avengers.
Yeah.
So yeah, this whole
it's pretty weird, and making Tony Stark like borderline villain, I think, was a big mistake. Like I don't think. Reading it now, I kind of like it, and I am going to finish it. I mainly wanted to just do the Spider-Man one for this, because this was kind of the one that drew everyone in.
You think fans would have reacted negatively if in the movie they would have kind of made Tony in the movie kind of the bad guy, so to speak, as far as kind of making a right and a wrong choice in that movie?
I think so, but I mean, you know, of course, there's already those people out there that like, if it doesn't follow the original thing exactly, then it sucks, and those people are idiots.
And we've discussed before, who wants to go see a superhero movie based on a comic book that you already know the beginning, middle, and end to? Because if you already know that, what's the point in going to see the movie? Same way with a book you've read that you really liked. Let's say like a Tom Clancy novel, for instance. Yeah. If you read the book and you really enjoyed the book, yeah, you want the movie to kind of follow the book to a certain degree as far as the essence of the book, but you don't want necessarily. I guess sometimes you want to see a copy.
Sometimes, but not always.
But I mean, you know, what's the fun in seeing something come to life? I guess I could see the appeal to it, but at the same time,
that's
there's nothing wrong with deviating it so long as you're not taking the characters completely away from what they originally were in whatever it is format you've taken them from in the first place.
Random question. What was that Keanu Reeves movie that came out a year or two ago that John Wick or something.
Yes. Have you seen that?
No,
That's really
I need to watch it.
that's
I might
really
watch
good.
it tonight if it's on Netflix.
Have you seen the movie? Since we're talking about whatever, have you seen the movie with Denzel Washington, the Equalizer?
No, I never saw that one.
That is really good too.
Yeah, yeah.
You want to see Denzel Washington be a very quiet, kick-ass. I don't know if you want to call him assassin. I don't think assassin's the wrong word, but if you really want to see him be quote a badass, that's one to watch. So he
You've
gets the
seen
job done
Training Day,
quietly
right?
once, and it's been a long time ago.
Man, I that was one of the first DVDs I owned when it went from VHS to DVD back in 2002, I guess. It was probably like the first one I owned was Lord of the Rings, then Spider Man, then Training Day, I believe, and then some weird like some sort of live. I had like some live rock show like Tool or something like that. I don't know, but Training Day, I really liked that movie. Um, that was a very good movie. That's a movie where the whole time you think, well, like Denzel Washington, like he's really not a bad guy, and then you keep watching it, and it's like, no, he really is a bad guy. Like he's like way worse than I thought he was. Like he's really terrible. Um, it's got Terry Crews in it, just as a bit part, but he's the doorman at the really scary projects that they're at in they call it the jungle um, in Los Angeles. Like I'm sure it's somewhere in Compton if I remember correctly. But the really scary one where Denzel Washington is operating all his secret uh, drug money and all that. Terry Crews is the doorman of the place, and like when Ethan Hawke comes back, I think my favorite moment in that whole movie is when Ethan Hawke comes back and he's like, can't let you in, man. He's like, I need to see whatever Denzel Washington's name is, and Terry Crews just kind of looks at him and then opens the door. Like it's so good. He's like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but whatever, it's gonna happen. I don't know why we're talking about this right now. Anyway, yeah, so I'm gonna watch Civil War again. I'm gonna finish reading these comics because I don't know. I kind of like reading them now. I like them a lot better than I did. Um, it's kind of I remembered it being kind of a mess, and it kind of is, but whatever. Like they're pretty good. I think they're actually really good. I'll read them again. So I'm on volume 2 right now. I've only got 5 more to go. But anyway, until then, have a wonderful, wonderful life. Later.